From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. So all these people across time and across the world have a story about a gigantic avian thing that is large enough to prey on human beings, that is associated with natural disasters, dangerous weather, and they all have these regional variations, but those regional variations are relatively cosmetic often. You know, they're not core changes to the plot or the description. So the question is, Matt, how did so many people come up with this story? Is it like some sort of Jungian archetype? Is there some great game of telephone that just caused these once distinct myths to become increasingly similar upon retelling, and as the people of the world came into contact with each other more and more often? Or
I don't know. Is it just Mothman running around across the entire world?
Always was. Cue the astronaut meme, right? But instead of the planet, it's the Mothman statue with the crazy butt. Shout out to you, Point Pleasant. There's another question. It's the most tantalizing question. Could Thunderbirds be real? Here's where it gets crazy.
Yes. Well, no. Well, kind of.
Yeah. We so rarely get to say this. You'll find historians speculating that indigenous communities originally based these legends on the discovery of pterosaur fossils, like the large, flying, reptilian-looking things with the scythe-like heads. There are historians like Tom Holland, not the guy who plays Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
He's too busy. And Adrian Mayer, who have made it's like a speculative case. There's conjecture, but it's pretty plausible, you know. Like, imagine we're living thousands and thousands of years ago, and we're out walking around, we're hunting something or migrating somewhere, and then boom, we literally stumble across the giant bones of a long extinct creature. The pterosaur, by the way, has been extinct since the late Cretaceous age, which was around 66 million years ago. So we wouldn't have known what this looks like. We just found these enormous bones. What do we do?
Well, yeah, and I was reading so much on this, Ben, just about bird bones themselves, and how even a pterosaur is a dinosaur, right? But it is a flying dinosaur, and it had likely, this is just me remembering what I read, but it would have slightly different bones than, let's say, a land-walking dinosaur. The density would be a little bit different just for it to be able to take off and glide the way that it did. Those bones, because of their structure, they don't stick around as easily and as well as a larger, denser bone would and become fossilized in the same manner. I just keep that in mind. So, like, it is a rare thing to come across a pterosaur bone or set of bones, and then you'd have to be able to, put those bones together in a way, or you'd have to have enough of them to actually resemble a creature, right? Mm-hmm. To make a picture out of what it could be. But, just think about that. Especially if it's thousands of years ago, you find a bunch of bones that are kind of scattered in one place, but there's one that looks a lot like a strange skull that you've never seen before. I feel like that's the only way to begin actually imagining what a creature could look like or be, is if you find a skull.
Yeah, because otherwise you might just find a very long humerus or something like that, and you're like, well, this is a huge bone. It was, you probably would have enough knowledge of the natural world to not think it was just a creature with one bone. Like, yes. It was just a walking meat stick or something like that. But you would also, even if you had never seen a living example of this thing, you would have enough knowledge to think, if you found the right pieces, you would have enough knowledge to think this looks like a big bird skeleton. Kind of, and it leads to a lot of speculation, you know, like the famous conjecture about the origin of the Cyclops myth, which is basically the idea is that ancient people stumbled across an elephant skull. If you've never seen an elephant skull before and you've never seen a living elephant, then the area where the trunk is based is a big hole, and it looks like that's where an eye would go. It's totally understandable, you know?
Oh, yeah, especially if it was a mastodon or something that's even larger in scale, right? And you have that same kind of structure, you could totally see that thing's a cyclops, for sure.
Totally, 100%. I'm looking at elephant skull photographs now, and they're freaky, you know? If you don't see the rest of the skeletal anatomy, if you just see the skull, then yeah, it looks uncomfortably close to human-like, you know what I mean? Especially the teeth. But yeah, it's quite possible that that's what happened, that indigenous communities stumbled across an, as you said, very rare find of something like a pterosaur and thought, there are giant birds around. We need to watch out. And there's another complicating factor, which is this. You've just had this extraordinary experience, a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Now you are hypersensitive to everything that happened before that discovery, during that discovery, and after that discovery. It could be plausibly attributed to the creature itself. So maybe we're out there, fellow conspiracy realists, millennia ago, and we have just survived an astonishing and dangerous storm. You know what I mean? The sky was lighting up, the land was flooding, the earth was shaking, and then in the aftermath, we find this strange skeleton. Then it's totally reasonable for us, as rational people, to assume that the two events are related, right? Like, this storm had something to do with this creature, so it's a big bird, but it also has weather powers.
Right? Yeah, well, it's possible, yeah. Just smashing two instances together like that's very common in humanity, right? That's just what we do.
Yeah, it's a hot thing. It's like what all the cool people are doing. This still doesn't explain everything, because the Thunderbird, as depicted in mythology, is often like clearly avian. It's got feathers, right? So how do we explain the specificity here? These stories, this is our big reveal, these stories could in fact be based on real life encounters with actual kaiju-like birds. That's nuts. There was a real thing. There were these real, enormous, and quite dangerous birds that today are known as terror birds.
Terror birds?
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah. Ben, you found some very interesting research for this specific thing, Terratorns, and I went down a deep rabbit hole of looking at these things. There were two, I think, species that were focused on in at least some of the writing that was there, and man, they're huge. They're these giant birds of prey. You know what that means? They eat animals. They eat other things. They fly around.
Animals.
Yeah. And they ranged from gigantic, essentially, this is how I would describe it, to, a large bird. But like, they got pretty dang big. My gosh. So there's one species called the Argentavis magnificens.
Yeah. Super humble name.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Magnificens. I don't know how to say scientific words, you guys. Magnificens. Yeah. Sure. It has something to do with silver because of the argent. Anyway.
Yeah, this is on the extreme end of the spectrum, right? These Terratorns, in the taxonomic sense, they would be described as a family. Like you said, they range in size and behavior. But our old boy Magnificens is currently believed to have had a wingspan of anywhere from 16 to 26 feet, making it quite possibly the heaviest bird of all time. For comparison, the living bird with the largest wingspan right now is the wandering albatross. and that one can, I think its wingspan on average is a little under 10 feet, but it can be as wide as 12 feet. Still, it's dwarfed by this monstrous sky demon in ancient Argentina.
Yeah, that's crazy to imagine that two of my heights equal just the albatross's wingspan in some cases, but then you would need me plus another 10 feet or me plus 20 feet. My gosh.
yeah, like that's in this size. This question of size is going to be another important component of our investigation here. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, dude. And this is not a ding on any of us or anybody listening to the show, but this bird, if you ran into it and you were unarmed, would absolutely mop you. It would demolish a single human in like a PvP fight, and it would not be a close call. Unfortunately, we don't have the arm span to box with that thing, you know.
The best you can do is, oh, dang it, and then it's over.
yeah, hide somewhere. You know what I mean? Because it can probably fly faster than you can run. So the biggest question here is, could this thing, we know they are real, we know Teratorns did exist, could they have met human beings at some point? This is similar to the conjecture about Homo florensis and Australopithecus, right? Who Homo florensis are the so-called real-life hobbits. We did an episode or two on them. They were around when humans were around, and it's possible that they interacted. And then Australopithecus is the largest known primate ever. So Australopithecus is often brought up as the possible origin of abominable snowman or Yeti type stories, but there's no proof that early humans interacted with that creature specifically. In the case of Teratorns, though, which is like the worst of the three things we just named, in the case of Teratorns, it is weirdly enough quite possible that early humans ran into these things, freaked out, and totally thought, they were forces of nature with supernatural powers. And that was a rational conclusion to make at the time, because, as you said, they're like 20 feet wide. And this is the closest you will come to seeing something like a plane. We know that their fossils have been found in various spots across both continents.
Yeah, and they're thought to weigh 150 pounds, 160 pounds sometimes. I mean, that's insane to think about. My understanding, Ben, is that they lived around 6 million years ago. Is that about right? I just don't know. I found that on some BBC article, but I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah. It depends on the specific type of bird you're talking about, because some went extinct earlier than others. Some were around later. And right now, experts are still trying to figure out what comprises a different species of a teratorn. And because, like you said, the bones are incredibly fragile, we don't know exactly when they went extinct. The closest people can get is that they're believed to have gone extinct at the end of the Pleistocene, which is about 10,000 years ago, which sounds like a long time, and it is a long time, but it's much more recent than 6 million years. And
yeah, it is.
Yeah, we still don't know, but we do know something else about this period of time. This is the period of time when anatomically modern humans evolved. So this means that it is possible that something very much like modern human beings ran into something very much like a Thunderbird. And we know that this is possible because there have been fossils found in Nevada and California, and there are, mild spoiler alert, there are purported sightings of Thunderbirds in the modern day.